Okay, we're gonna get started because I think this is, okay. Hi, everyone. Okay, so we're ready to start. Welcome to week one of the Midlife Authors Series, Midlife Women's Author Series. Sorry, for the next 5 weeks, I'm going to be interviewing authors of newly released books focusing on health and the well-being of women in midlife and beyond. A few of you may not know who I am, and so my name is Amanda Thebe. I'm a personal trainer and nutrition coach. I've been in this industry, gosh, 30 years now. Cringe. I'm also the author of Menopocalypse, How I Learned to Thrive During Menopause and How You Can Too. And my personal aim is to raise awareness and promote knowledge about menopause to give you the tools to be successful in your health choices, because we often know that that's one of the struggles. This week, I am joined, my very first guest, by Joan Lunden. So welcome, Joan. Thank you so much for coming to the show. I'm super excited, and so is everybody else I know. Give Joan a wave.
Thank you. Hi, everybody.
I'm just going to give a little introduction about Joan, just in case you don't know her, but I know you all do. Joan helped wake up millions of Americans as the host of Good Morning America for 2 decades. As a journalist, a busy working mum, and part of the sandwich generation. I feel that actually, Joan. She knows a thing or two about the realities of being an aging woman in our society today. Joan is a leading health and wellness advocate, speaking all around the country about women's health and how to age successfully. Her new book on the topic, Why Did I Come Into This Room? A Candid Conversation About Aging. This book here, it's a beautiful cover, by the way, is being called her most candid, raw, and funny book to date. And we're super excited to have Joan on the show today. If I keep looking to the side, it's because people are still coming in and I'm having to admit them. So Joan, thank you so much for being here. It's super, super exciting to have you here. And can I just tell you before we start, my inbox was like flooded with emails going, oh my goodness, Joan, we love her. We love her. You're a national treasure.
Well, that's great.
Can I ask, so can we start by asking, you've written so many books. You're so accomplished in everything you do. What made you write this book, and specifically about aging? What was the impetus for starting writing this book?
So, I wrote my first book. Oh gosh, now it's been so long ago. I think had just turned 40, and when I'd had 3 children, and it's hard sometimes, maybe not for you as a fitness trainer, but for us mere mortals, to lose that last, 5, 10, 15 pounds or so afterwards. And you kind of get used to it sometimes after. And before I knew it, I was carrying around what I affectionately called my baby weight, which meant weight from my previous children being born. And
I just tell everyone how many children you have.
Well, I have 7 children. I have 3 daughters who are in their 30s. I had them all while I was on Good Morning America, not actually on the show, but close. And then I remarried, and my husband and I have 2 sets of twins, 15 years old and 17, almost 18 years old. So I have 4 kids in high school, at home, doing remote learning. Oh, you would think I would have learned by now the eye roll. Teenage girls, the easy ones. But, I remember back at the time when I was like 40, and I remember seeing a cover of a magazine, it was like probably Cosmo or Ladies Home Journal, and it had the 3 women on Charlie's Angels. That tells you how long ago it was. And I think it was Fearless, Fabulous, and 40, Fit, Fabulous, and 40. And I was like, I'd like to be that. So as I turned 39, I decided to start getting my act together and get back in shape. And I lost a lot of weight, but it wasn't so much the losing of the weight. It changed my life. I mean, it literally changed me. I remember I used to say I run around all the time so much, in my work. I'd be too tired if I worked out. Little did I realize that I was always tired. I mean, of course, I woke up at 3:30 in the morning. I probably got 5-6 hours of sleep every night. but I was just dragging, and I felt like I was trying to keep up with the speed of life. And once I started getting my act together and getting fit, I found that I became in charge of my own energy level. That, as I would go in and I'd work out and I'd come out of that gym and I was bouncing off the walls, and I just felt so good. And so after a year of just getting myself, it's not a matter of getting yourself a smaller size, although, I did work in the land of TV and 8x10. I should have been checking myself, but it's never too late, and better late than never. And my kids kept seeing everywhere we go, people would say, "How did you do it? You look great. How did you do it?" And they kept saying, "Mom, just write a book already." So I did. And I wrote a book, Healthy Cooking. And then I followed that with Healthy Living. I followed that with Growing Up Healthy, when I worked with a childhood nutritionist on that one. And the basis, though, of it all is that I'm a doctor's daughter. My dad was a cancer surgeon. Always thought I'd be a doctor. Well, I just always knew I would grow up and be a doctor. But I worked in a hospital that my dad had helped to found, and right out of high school. And I found out pretty quickly that stitches and scalpels and shots were not going to be a part of my career. So, I majored in psychology, which was probably good for interviewing people all my life. But at my core was this kind of a yearning to follow in my dad's footsteps and be of service to others in a sense of helping them live healthier lives. So when I left Good Morning America, I started a website. Believe it or not, I never had a computer when I was at Good Morning America. People didn't have personal laptops. There was no Google. Like, we actually had to read the stuff and learn it so that we could do the interview. But I got a laptop, and this is in 1998, I guess, and started a website. And the designer said, "What do you want to call it?" And I said, "Joan Lunden's Healthy Living." Like, there's not even a second thought. And as I left Good Morning America, I realized that you needed to decide, who are you? What's your brand? What are you about? What are you going to stand for with people? And I clearly wanted to be in the field of health and the dissemination of health. And so in the years since Good Morning America and in writing books, it's better to decide what you want to be to people. It makes writing books and saying yes or no to media projects much easier. And to know what you shouldn't do. Like, every year when Dancing with the Stars calls me, I'm smart enough to say no.
You're not going to do it then? That's a no?
No. You know what? I spent my entire life building my journalistic integrity and credibility. I don't need to go on Dancing with the Stars. I mean, I'm incredibly busy. I do a lot of different health campaigns for a lot of different companies. I have a new show starting on January 30th on PBS called Second Opinion with Joan Lunden. It's a show that's been on PBS for 16 years. And I just became the host of it. So we've already shot our first 10 shows, and it's all about healthcare. I'm also the host of a podcast, which I do for the Washington Post and the Cleveland Clinic, called Caring for Tomorrow. Again, it's all about the future of healthcare. I love my niche. I just really love it, because what it means is that I've developed this incredibly strong and kind of personal relationship with women all across America and really around the world. I do a lot of Facebook Lives, and I have people join in from Sweden and from Belgium and from Australia. I did them for the first 3 months of the pandemic, and every day there was this one person that said, "I'm watching you as usual from Israel. We're eating dinner."
Yes.
So it's great. And, I had a book agent long time ago, and I'd had a couple of bestsellers, and the publisher came to me and said, "What do you want to write? We want you to write another book." So I went to him and I said, "Well, what am I going to write about now?" I mean, you always feel after you've written a book like you squeezed every last thought out of your brain, and like, I'll never be able to write another book again. And he said, "Joan, you will always write about that which you want to know more about." And boy, was he right. when I left Good Morning America, I wrote a book called A Bend in the Road is Not the End of the Road. It was all about change. When I was having all of a sudden these sets of twins, I wrote Growing Up Healthy. When I went through my cancer battle, I wrote Had I Known. And so this time I sat at my laptop and I thought, so what am I dealing with these days? Aging, that's for sure. Do I want to understand my body better? Do I want to understand why your waistline expands, why you forget things, why there's a loss of libido, why there's hot flashes? Yeah, I want to know. I want to really understand my female body and all these changes that, you know, and in studying that, I learned that we all go through these changes. Every single woman, because we have estrogen in our body, we experience aging differently than men. And it was my fear that each and every one of us individually as women, when we don't talk about these things, we kind of experience them in a bit of isolation. And when you start seeing your body change, and you can really be marginalized, you can start to feel something's wrong with me. I'm not as sexy. I'm not as appealing. Am I not as relevant? And it's a terrible path, I think, to go down.
And
so
you know,
I wanted this to be a conversation starter. Throw it all out there and say, it's all happening to me. How about you? Let's talk about it.
This is exactly what I sorry, didn't mean to interrupt, but that was just like, yes. I mean, it's actually the reason I wrote my book too, because I entered menopause with a blank slate, thinking, what the hell?
Let me be nice. Let me show your book right here.
Fine, thank you. But it was essentially the same thing, Joan. It was like things are happening to our body. We don't know. We don't know why it's happening. The conversation has been ignored. It's ridiculous that this information is not readily available to us all. And we're blindsided by, it's not just the fact that we're going through perimenopause and menopause. It can be life changes, emotional, physiological impacts that just make us not recognize ourselves. Yeah. And I actually want to touch on something that you said, and there were actually lots that you said. I've written thousands of notes here. You talked about being forgetful, and I suppose I want to dive into that first of all because it links to the title of the book. I know personally in menopause, I've always felt like I was like pretty like sharp and quite good at remembering things. I had a fairly decent working memory. But then I would have conversations and just forget words. Even just I'd do this intro, then forget where the hell I was going with it. And it was just be like, what's going on? And I know a lot of the women on here today are going through perimenopause and menopause or beyond that and completely resonate with that. So what I would love to know is, like, what did you find out about that when you did your research for the book?
Well, you know, the reason why I chose the name of the book is that of all the things that happen, you know, the expanding waistline, that the belly, and can I just say, like, to find out that biologically, our body stands ready all our lives as females to be child bearers. And we have a certain amount of fat cells on our hips and our thighs, so that if our belly does expand, that it kind of balances us out. Well, your body's really smart, and we don't have enough estrogen left to bear children again. The body says, oh, we don't need that there anymore. And guess where it goes? It goes to your abdomen. And first of all, it's nice to just know that happens, because I mean, we all sit here saying, I swear to God, I didn't eat that many more Tostitos last year. I mean, is this my fault? But the thing that's really important to know then is that any belly fat you have is dangerous fat. Any fat above your belly button that's closer to your heart. But there are ways you can get rid of that. You can lose about 11 pounds and lose an inch or so around your belly. But the reason why I went for why did I come into this room, I think of all the changes we go through, whether it's hot flashes or, you know, problems with sexual intercourse because your vaginal wall thins, all these different things. I think the fact that when our memory starts, you know, not being as sharp, that's the scariest thing. And, you know, and for men too, by the way, and it can start. Another thing I learned, the experts used to think that our brain started shrinking, not the brain, but the hippocampus, the part that controls our thinking and our memory in our 60s. Well, now they've learned that actually it starts shrinking when we're about 30 years old. And it shrinks a little bit more each year. But there are things that we can do to slow down that shrinking of our hippocampus. And, you know, the main thing we can do, I mean, just challenging your brain, there's learning new things, but new things, not the things you already knew how to do. And when you do those, it creates new little neurons in your brain. It's something called neurogenesis. And then those neurons can connect to the central system and slow down the shrinking of your brain. But the best thing is cardiovascular exercise. When you, I say to the fitness trainer, but for everybody listening out there, when I learned that I was going to go out and do my power walk and do my workout, that it wasn't just to, like, you know, make sure that my jeans buttoned, but that it was going to make me retain my cognitive thinking. Because when you work out, you send nutrients and blood and oxygen up to your brain. And that kind of neurogenesis creates neurons that are more adept at connecting to the central brain. And that is the best thing for keeping our cognitive thinking and our ability going. Well, once I learned that, and I changed the way I thought of exercise forever after. Like, I couldn't get my sneakers on fast enough because I wanted to go out because, man, I want to be able to keep my memory. You know, that's the thing that we really want to be able to hold on to. So and, you know, part of that, and the reason also why I wanted to write this book is that the demographic of our world is changing, not just America, but every country in the world, and that it's getting older. You know, we have this huge population of people that are now, and like here in America, we have 10,000 people turn 65 every single day. So our over 65 population is growing rapidly. And by 2030, they say there will be far more people over 65 than under 18. And so we have all these people who are older, but life is different. We're living longer. We're continuing to work longer. We want to stay fit and engaged and enjoying life and be able to, you know, enjoy everything out there and explore new opportunities. So we need to talk about the fact that we're all living longer and that we have to approach aging in a different way. And, you know, I didn't just talk about, gee, you know, I have leaky bladder, do you? Like, we all have leaky bladders as we get older, but there are things you can do about it. So I wanted to, and a lot of them are just little life tweaks, little changes, tiny changes in the way you live your life that can make a huge difference in your health.
Can I ask you about the going back to the exercise? Because we know cardiovascular health is super important to us. And I obviously promote strength training as well as another essential part. But on a cellular level, we know the impact of even just going for daily walks. And it's interesting because somebody is commenting that, you know, it hurts to exercise. It can hurt their joints. And sometimes it can be difficult to motivate yourself. And you talked about going outside and walking it's not just even on a cellular level, it's also on the fact that the way it boosts your endorphins as well, right? And you feel so much better, and it doesn't have to be complicated. I think that's what you're saying, that the small things that you do on a regular basis, right?
And right now, especially, Amanda, because we are all, you know, dealing with the pandemic, and people are having trouble managing stress, they're having trouble sleeping at night. And if you can get outside, and I know that we have a lot of people on from the UK today, and I know you're in a lockdown. So, but if there's a way you can get outside wherever you are, the earlier in the morning, the better, because as soon as that sunlight hit you, it will help regulate what's called your circadian clock. And it'll help you be ready to go to bed at night. And of course, you know, we've heard it a million times, but it really is true. You have to turn everything off at night. You have to, don't have that laptop in bed with you. My husband and I have banned laptops from our bedroom. And don't have your phone on. I mean, if you have that phone on and you're getting alerts from the New York Times, or you're getting people or whatever it is, and that phone is lighting up, it's going to help. It tells your brain, it literally is the impetus for your brain not to go to sleep. So, there are lots of little things we can do. People being at home and not living their normal lives and not moving around like they normally do, just to get up and get dressed and go to work and drive and come back. That's got a lot of people's bodies just slowing down. And when I say slowing down, I mean your digestive tract. And, you kind of start with this lethargy that is then hard to get out of. So the more we can get up in the morning, and I always say, before you put your feet on the ground, say, this is going to be an awesome day. And then get up and get dressed and kind of get going, because you'll find that by 2 p.m, you'll feel completely different.
Yeah, that's really great advice. And I think just in, like you were saying, we're in a pandemic. It's challenging right now. Yeah. It's so stressful. In the UK, they're in lockdown, but they are allowed outside to exercise. And my mum always used to say, there's no such thing as bad weather, just bad clothing. There's no, I used to go outside when it was pouring down with rain, and I lived in Canada for 15 years. You've no excuse, like it literally just get out. But I truly believe in the power of nature as well, just to.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Getting outside and just seeing the trees and the sun. And by the way, I see somebody here saying that they are in Dorset, UK, Jacqueline. Hi, Jacqueline. And that it's chilly here. And then Beverly, you say exercise is the only reason we are allowed out in the UK. So that's great. And okay, somebody's asking, was my mom Scottish? No, but here's the connection. My dad was Australian. He's no longer with us, but he was Australian. In fact, I'll share a little bit of information with you. My name was originally Blunden, Joan Lunden. And there are a lot of Blundens in England and in Ireland and in Australia, because there were twin brothers. And I think it was probably in like the turn of the century. It was in the 1800s. One brother went to Ireland, one brother went to Australia. In fact, when we did Good Morning America out of Ireland, we actually took a tour of a Blunden castle.
Awesome.
So that's my connection. So my grandparents were from Sydney, Australia, and from Auckland, New Zealand, but any generation before that, they were all from the UK. So that's
I love all that lineage, don't you? It's so great. So talking about aging, right? So, there's a huge, all women on here, we're all frustrated, the challenges that get thrown at us all the time. And my message is very much about, not having negative talk and being very positive about aging, and all of these things really do matter, how you approach this time of life. But we need to talk about things that not just, you talked about obviously being on the TV and how you looked, and even though you didn't want to sort of admit to that sort of like part of being like vain, all of us have got a little bit of that in us. I don't care what anyone's, and that's fine. But so aging comes with wrinkles, gray hairs, and also you like to talk about the other stuff that's really a little bit more sensitive for some women, don't like to talk about it too much, and like their sex life, their libido goes.
Yeah.
I'd like to ask you for some tips. I think it's one of those candid type of conversations we all need to have, but we often don't. So, vaginal atrophy is a big problem for most women. It's one of those things, unfortunately, that, we struggle with our dropping estrogen. And so, and with it goes our desires go as well. And so in your experience, I'm trying to word this in a way that doesn't say, like, how's your sex life, Joan?
No, but you know what? I totally know where you're going. So I talked to a lot of gynecologists, and they all said the same thing, that women would come in and they'd say, all right, they usually sit you down in the office before they take you into the exam room, and how's your life? What's going on with you? And they would talk about their daughter graduating from college or their son doing this. And they said, but then we would say to them, but wait a minute, you're 54 or you're 65 or whatever age. aren't you experiencing some, is your waistline getting bigger? Are you tending to forget? Are you having hot flashes? Are you having trouble sleeping at night? Are you waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning? Is your bladder leaking? He called it the key, the front door syndrome or something. Yeah. That's what he calls it. So as soon as you put your key in the door, your bladder says, "Oh, I'm home." Okay. And then it's like a race. It's a race between you and your bladder's brain to see who beats who to the bathroom. And these are things that happen that are embarrassing. I mean, they're embarrassing, but they're also worrisome. They are worrisome. Like, what do I do about this? I know this is happening. Is it supposed to be happening? Is it supposed to be happening now? What can I do about it? But it's not something you're going to discuss with even a girlfriend or, and the doctors all say, and they don't tend to discuss it with them until the doctor says, like leaky bladder, do you ever experience that? Or do you have this, or do you have that? And the women say, "Oh my God, I have all of that."
Yeah.
But it's kind of embarrassing to talk about. So that was part of my impetus to try. I mean, look at the world we live in. For gosh sakes, we overshare so much on Facebook today. And, there's everything's kind of out there to talk about. Why should these things be taboo subjects? We need to talk about these things. And women need to feel like they can talk with their gynecologist or their primary care physician. And if you're not comfortable talking about this, then get a different doctor, change doctors, because you need to be able to talk to your doctor about this. There are things that you can do. So basically, as you get older, the same thing happens if you go through chemo. Remember, I went through chemo for a year when I had breast cancer, and basically, went out into the public and shared every one of my appointments with everybody, and to try to make sure that other women battling it, that it wasn't a mystery. And when you take chemo, that targets the inner linings of our body. That's why men and women who are going through cancer get sores in their mouth. It targets the inside of our digestive system. So you have all kinds of digestive problems. But guess what? It also attacks the insiding of the vagina, the vaginal lining, and it makes it thinner. But even if you haven't gone through chemo, aging basically does the same thing, so that the lining of your vagina gets thinner and more and less elastic, so that sex can be painful. And women are like, "What the heck is happening?" But there are things that you can do. And I mean, there are medical things you can do. There's something called the Mona Lisa wand, which, a doctor can do. It goes inside your vagina, and it makes you.
Oh, I'm listening to a podcast.
Can you please turn off your microphone, please?
Okay.
Someone was just talking then. Can you please mute your phone, please?
So these are things that most women don't know about. They don't know that this is happening to them over time. Just like your face, you lose some of the collagen in your face. And what happens is it creates wrinkles, and eventually it also makes it sink in certain places, which makes darker circles under your eyes, or maybe little spots other places. Well, I mean, the analogy is the same thing happens to the inside of the lining of your vagina. So there's ways to use different products that you can get from your gynecologist to increase that lining. So there are things that we can do about this. And you tend to lose your desire when something's not comfortable. Yes. So that's why, other women don't usually write about this in a book. And I thought, what the heck? Like, I'm 70 years old. Like,
okay, just stop.
At this point, like I can talk about anything.
We all need to just stop right there and ask, you're 70 years old?
Yes, I turned 70 in September.
Oh my goodness, you look amazing. And your energy is amazing too. And that's really inspirational, I think, for a lot of women, is because especially going through the challenging times of perimenopause and menopause, we know how much fatigue and that the lack of the zest for life goes a little bit. And so it's so great to see you with so much zest for life. That's really inspiring.
Well, I have a zest for life. And I think that is, because our population is getting older, I think it's important that we all talk about this. They say the three most important things that will determine how successfully you age are staying engaged in life, which is basically the same thing you're saying, keeping that zest for life, staying engaged. Number two, social connections, friends, not just that one, daughter that comes over and takes care of you, but friends that you get up in the morning and you look forward to talking to them, which uses your brain. And the third thing is having a sense of purpose. And that doesn't mean that you have to volunteer at a hospital or start a philanthropy. It could mean that you have a vegetable garden that you want to get up and go out and you have to weed it. It's because you've started painting and you can't wait to get back and finish that painting. It can be anything that gives you a sense of purpose, because all these things keep you engaged with the world. It keeps you talking with people, which is really important for your brain. Isolation. I learned a lot about the negative impact on our health in terms of isolation. And this is a really important subject because a lot of people, as they get older, they live alone. Right now, during the pandemic, people are experiencing this. The experts in gerontology say that isolation has as big a negative impact on your health and your immune system as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Just think about that. I mean, when it was really put into those terms, it made me really understand how important it was to, get out there and stay out there. And, a lot of us have been raised in a world where you are expected to kind of like put the brakes on, slow down at 60, retire at 65, and, kind of expect to be 6 feet under by the time you're 70. Well, that's not our world today. When you turn 65, you could well have 30 years in front of you.
Yes, I know.
So you need to think different. You need to remember that you have to be open to new possibilities, new opportunities, and you have to look for them. They don't always just come and like slap you in the face.
That's actually a really great lead point. I'm going to ask you one more question before we open it up to the floor. I really would like to get some people to ask questions, but I do have one quick question. Going back to your original comment right at the very beginning, when you left working in TV and live TV, was there a time that you felt like you lacked identity, or you were worried about what was coming, or you felt a little bit invisible? Because I know that that's something we've all experienced, and I want to know sort of what you did to sort of overcome that. And I think you sort of answered it a little bit then.
Absolutely. And there's no getting around it. I mean, just think back in time when, women were pretty much in the kitchen, in the home, taking care of, and when men would retire at 60 or 65, they often were just aimless. They had lost their entire identity. Well, now women experience that. And, and sometimes women experience, quite honestly, they experience it when they stop working to have children and they're staying home. And it's a very difficult thing to kind of wrap their brain around, because they're no longer the stockbroker or the dentist or the whatever it was they were doing. And so when I left Good Morning America, I remember one reporter said to me, "Whoa, what are you going to do? Because you'll never have a job any better than this. Like you can't make it any better." And I was like, "Well, thank you very much." It really was tough for me in the beginning. And that's why I had to really take charge of it and decide what I wanted to do. And it's not that I wanted to keep my face plastered out of there, but I had a connection with millions of Americans. We didn't have Facebook yet. So when I left Good Morning America, I was disconnected from all those people. And that was probably the thing that bothered me the most. It was like I had them all ripped away. And I mean, when Facebook came back, let me tell you, my husband was like, "You are going crazy," because I was reconnecting with, I have my, 80,000 or so best friends on Facebook that I don't know personally, but I'm so glad they're all there in the community with me. And, you know, when the pandemic just hit, it was like, what am I going to be doing? All of my speeches were canceled. Everything got canceled. So like a weekend, I started doing Facebook Lives every day at 1 o'clock. And I did them for 3 months, Monday through Friday. And my husband would say, what is it with you? Like every time I come into the office, you're either booking someone, calling to try to book a guest, researching, writing a script, or you're interviewing them and you're not being paid for this. Like, what are you doing this for? And I said, because I'm good at it, because I like to, because I'm not bored. Everybody talks about being bored. I don't have enough hours in the day to do everything. So I was like learning things. I was, you know, that's how I kind of approach life. And that's how I approached my life. I remember, I'll tell you something. When I left Good Morning America, I was asked to do a speech in, was it in Scotland? And it was an international travel conference. So I said, yes, I'm going to do this. Now, I will tell you that the whole time prior to this, the whole time working at GMA for 20 years, I was really afraid of public speaking. And people would say, what are you talking about? How can you be afraid of being in front of 500 or 1,000 people? 23 million people see you every day. And I said, yeah, but I never see any of them.
Don't see them.
And I used to really get nervous to go out and give a speech, which was easy not to have to do when I was at Good Morning America, because people would always ask me to come and give a speech. And I'd say, oh, I'm so sorry, but I really can't say yes, because God only knows where in the world I'll be on that day that you've planned this big event. And I decided I was going, while I was trying to figure out what I was going to do, I was going to get over my fear of public speaking. So I went on tour with Tony Robbins. I don't know if you all know Tony Robbins, but he's a huge inspirational guru. And he had this speakers series. We did 2 a month, and I signed up for 2 years. And these would be in major sports arenas with 26,000 people there. And walking out on that stage in the beginning was almost surreal. Like I hardly even remember like the experience of walking out there. And I had my speech on a teleprompter, and I was totally married to that speech. And little by little, and Tony caught on to what was going on. And he said, all right, you know, after a few months, he said, I'm going to put a headpiece on you instead of a lavalier mic so that you can walk around. You don't have to stay behind that podium. And I'm going to have your copy on all the television screens that are down around the stage. And then one day I went in and I just said, I have something else to say today. And I didn't, my hour, not on prompter. The prompter operator must have been back there saying, oh my God, where is she? Where is she? Where is she? And I got over my fear of public speaking. And I will tell you that before the pandemic, this is a huge part of my career. I probably give 40 speeches a year, and that's a lot. That has me on the road week in and week out. I sometimes am in 3 different states in 1 week. And I work with 15 different speakers bureaus. I am a living, breathing, walking example that you can turn a complete fear into a complete passion.
That's wonderful.
And
yeah.
I now love going out and speaking. I never would have dreamed that day would have come, but it just shows us that we can change our lives for the better at any point in time.
And I think that you've also touched on something there. That's a new skill. And we also know from a neurological standpoint that if we actually learn a new skill, it also breeds that confidence as well. And so I definitely am somebody who encourages, and somebody posted in the chat that they'd learned to crochet. I know, my friend Tammy. And again, that's something else. That's an amazing skill, because you're having to learn something. And it doesn't have to be as bold as doing a 20,000 seater stadium talk, but like some small things feed us.
Absolutely.
What I'd love to do now is I would love to open the floor for a question and answer session. We've already got one question there now.
Okay.
I'm going to start with that, but if you want to pop a little question in the chat function, I'll try and get to it. We've got about 15 minutes to do this. But the first one I'd like to ask you, John, and this comes from Joyce, is, well, she's asking us both, but I'm going to put it to you, John, is about your husband. Like, so you were going through all of these challenges, like with your health, and you took control of those, but you had some personal issues as well. And I think this question came up when we were talking about vaginal problems and our libido. How did you address those issues with your husband so that it was a joint like issue rather than just a personal thing for yourself?
So I will tell you that I got married when I was 29 years old, and I married somebody who was 39, and we had 3 girls, but it didn't work out, probably because I changed my life. I changed into this energetic kind of young person, and we divorced. And so 20 years later, when I was 49, I got married again. And again, I married a man who was 39. Think about that one for a minute. 20 years apart. The second 39-year-old worked out a lot better. And a lot of people have asked me, what's it like being married to somebody who's 10 years younger than me? I have to say, if you saw the two of us, we look like we're matched. He doesn't look 10 years younger than me. He's like a mature, I can't believe when I met him, he was 35, God. But, and you know, statistically, women live 10 years longer than men, almost. And so statistically, we should be like right on par. And we made this decision. I loved having little kids, and, you know, my kids were just getting ready to go away to college, and I liked the idea of having little feet pitter patter down the hall in the morning. So, you know, we had kids together, and he's a very, you know, he works out every day. He likes to play tennis with me. He likes to, like, and by the way, anybody listening, if you want to, I mean, try to put not just exercise back into your life, try to put play back into your life. Fun. Maybe you used to like to hike, plan a hiking trip. Maybe you used to like to snow ski or whatever it is, but tennis and play, because there's something that kind of spices up a relationship when you do something competitive with them. I think, and, you know, my husband and I, we used to go to the gym together. Well, now we go downstairs into our gym here, and I like working out with him. And it also gives you that space in which you can talk about your health that you wouldn't maybe normally want to bring up. But I found that the more I've shared with my husband about what I'm going through, which I was admittedly really reluctant to share, maybe because he is 10 years younger, the better our relationship is, the more he understands me. I'll tell you something. I've had more men write to me on Facebook and say, my wife got your book, and when she finished it, I read it. Wow, I really feel like I understand my wife a lot more now. I mean, it would be great if all the men in the world read this so that they would get women and where women were coming from and what women were dealing with, and the way we sometimes feel marginalized or, you know, less relevant as we get older, because we've got to change the way this happens, because women in their 50s and 60s, and I say 70s, are going to need to be able to feel more relevant, because that's the way our life, that's the way we're all living our lives today. So, you know, try to involve your husband a little bit in any kind of play or workout, and look for those little times that you can also talk about the things that you are going through, even if they might be a little embarrassing, because I think that that kind of, I mean, it's intimacy. It's a sharing of personal things that you're experiencing and dealing with. And I think that it can strengthen the bond between a husband and wife.
I actually feel the same way. And in addition to, I agree with everything you've just said, but in addition to that, I also would tell my husband when I wasn't sure what was wrong. I didn't feel like I needed to have an answer to be able to share with him. So I would just tell him that I wasn't feeling myself or something wasn't right. And I would share that with him, because ultimately he would bring it back to himself, like, does she not like me anymore? What have I done wrong? Like, how is he supposed to understand what's going on when we don't understand? And so I would overshare with him regardless of whether I had the answers or not. And I just think that open communication and intimacy, like you said, is key.
Well, Amanda, you just brought up a big problem, though, because a lot of times when sexual intercourse becomes uncomfortable for women as they age, so they are, they're reluctant to engage, and it can make a guy feel like you don't really like him anymore. Or you don't really want to be with them anymore. So that's why, and it can really destroy a lot of marriages. And perhaps sometimes that's, why men go off and stray, because they think their wife isn't into them anymore. So that's another reason why it's so important to talk about this. I see a couple of people, someone's saying, I've been learning Italian. See, that's really good. Learning a new language, learning a new musical instrument, taking up a hobby you've never done before. It's those new things. Someone else is asking, what type of foods do you include in your meal plan? I learned so much going through cancer, because I really, when I went through cancer, became very focused on learning about my cells and about cell production and what in my immune system. And so I went on a no bread, no dairy, no sugar diet. I don't want to say diet, eating program, because that way I was eating a completely clean diet, because when you go through chemo, you can have major digestive problems, like really big digestive problems. And as long as I stayed on that, which I really did through the entire thing, I didn't have any digestive problems. And I don't stay on that all the time now, although I will say that I look for a nutrient-dense proteins, chicken, some meat, but not as much meat, fish, nutrient-dense proteins with as many vegetables as possible, and a limited amount of fruits, because fruits are good, but especially when you're going through chemo, they can raise your blood sugar level, and they can actually promote cell growth. And you don't necessarily want to do that when you're going through chemo. So, and I try to do this as much as I can here in my home, because we're the role models for our kids, and I have 4 teenagers. I'm not going to tell you that we don't order in pizza now and then. Like, I'm not like a complete, I don't ban foods. And if they want something, I made a baked ziti the other night, so I eat somewhat normally, but I try really hard to keep the dairy out of my diet. I just find that it really is not good for my waistline. So I try to keep the dairy out of my diet. I really try to eat real food. I try to shop the perimeter of a grocery store and buy and cook real food and not processed foods. I cook dinner every night. We have no toys at the table. That means no iPhones or anything. You have to put them in. We have a little lockup cage. Everybody puts them in, and everybody eats together. So, because it's more than just creating a situation where your kids will talk, but it's also so that we're teaching them good eating habits.
Yes, I agree so much. I love that you said that. Like, to me, food isn't just about what you eat. It's a culture. It's a celebration. And yeah, we need to remove like morality around food as well. Like, we shouldn't be labeling something good or bad, but looking for balance, in our lives, and finding what works for you as well. Because even though somebody's asked you exactly what you eat, it probably may not work for them, so it's like play around with what works for you. I have a quick question. It came up earlier in the chat. Did you discuss perimenopause and menopause with your older daughters? You said you had some, have you had that discussion with them?
My older daughters are, they're all married. 2 of them have children. They have 2 children each. young ones, and they're now, let's see, 34, 37, and one just turned 40. And so they've all read my book. They all say, I know you wrote this for women kind of over 40-ish, you know, so to speak, but they said, we think every 20-something young woman should read this so they know what's coming down the pike, so that they understand it, so they won't be intimidated by it, so they won't feel less appealing because of it. I also understand, I had big conversations with them because once you have breast cancer, you need to have these discussions with your daughters. But you know, this, we should just talk about, every one of us needs to really, truly not pay lip service to it, but really, truly, truly know our family medical history. And, you know, ask the questions, be the one, call them up. And it's not just up your mom's side, it's up your father's side as well. And, you know, you have to know if someone's had colon cancer, and if they had colon cancer, when did it first get diagnosed? Because you should have your first colonoscopy 10 years before that. And you have to find out if someone's had not just breast cancer, but any other cancer, because we've now learned that other cancers can then be kind of a precursor for you getting, you know, breast or ovarian cancer. And make no mistake, we should all do our self-exams. Don't read an article in a magazine that says, oh, I don't know if you should do those. Yes, we need to know our own normal. So, and we should do those. And if something doesn't feel right, you go to the doctor right away and find out. I can't tell you how many women I speak to in this country that have metastatic breast cancer. And, you know, it's because a doctor didn't catch their cancer until it was too late, and in too late of a stage. We thankfully have gotten more breast cancer research dollars funneled into metastatic breast cancer in the last couple of years, because that's really the key. We've got to make metastatic breast cancer a managed chronic illness instead of a death sentence. But it's all up to all of us. And let me just say one other thing, and I'm sorry I get on my little pedestal here, but you need to know whether you have dense breast tissue. I had dense breast tissue, but I didn't know that dense tissue was a thing. I didn't know, well, it happens to be one of the risk factors for breast cancer. It also shows up on a mammogram as white. Well, guess what? Cancer shows up as white on a mammogram. And one doctor said to me, it's kind of like looking for a snowball in a snowstorm. So you can think, I eat right, I work out, and I go for my mammogram every year, and that mammogram said, I don't have any breast cancer. And you can walk out of there thinking you're doing everything right when you have breast cancer that they just couldn't see on a mammogram, even a 3D mammogram. So you need to ask that radiologist, because sometimes if you go back to a primary care physician or a gynecologist, you don't always get the straight talk. Find out from that radiologist, which we've now, and I've been in Washington lobbying for this, and we finally now have federal legislation passed in America that requires radiology labs to inform the patient if you have dense breast tissue, and it's divided up into 4 categories. Very fatty, which, you know, when you're really young, you have more dense tissue in your breast, and then as you get older, you get more fatty tissue. And it's very easy to see cancer in a fatty breast. But almost 50% of the women in America don't get that fatty tissue. They continue to have dense, fibrous breast tissue. And you need to know if that's you. If you are in the 3rd category, or forget it, if you're in the 4th category, you need an ancillary test. You need to have an ultrasound, because that's the only way we're going to find your breast cancer. So I went through this. I didn't know very much about it. I learned a lot about it, and I have felt compelled to go out and tell as many other women so that they understand their breast health and that they can best protect themselves.
Joan, that's really great information, and I learned a bit then as well. I have dense tissues, and it came up on my mammogram report this year, and I was like, oh, Didn't know I had that. So that's really, really interesting. And
so you need an ultrasound,
I
Amanda.
did. I had one. They gave me
good.
one. Oh,
good,
yeah.
good,
It
good.
was great. So I was like going, okay, this is good. Okay. So ladies on the call now, and Joan and I are going to do a little giveaway, and it should be quite good fun, this, right? So it's my book, and can I do a double hander? Mine and Joan's book. Okay. We're going to give everybody the opportunity to, not everyone can have the opportunity to take part. Joan is going to give away a book, and so am I. And how we're going to do this is I'm going to ask you a question, use the chat function, and the first 2 people to respond will be the winners. Okay, so the question to you is, what is the one thing you're going to do tomorrow to improve your life, your quality of life, in aging, after listening to Joan? Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
I love these. I love
I can't keep up. Oh my gosh.
So can I just ask Joyce? It's hard to keep up with them.
So I've got Mary and Kelly. They're your 2 people.
Yep. So Mary, where do you live?
Mary and Kelly are the 2 people that will win a copy. I'm just going to put my email in the chat, and I want you to just drop me an email now, and then we'll take it from there.
All right.
That was crazy. Mary's in England.
Yeah. So listen, I'll give 2 books, and we can give both books to each person. Can we find out what country you live in? Mary
is in England.
Okay.
And Kelly is in the United States.
All right. Hi, guys.
That was fun. That was quick. Jesus, I'm going to need somebody to help me next time. I can't keep up.
And I love these. I love all the answers, though. The elliptical. Yes. I'm going to get a mammogram. I'm going to work out. I'm going to go for a walk in the woods. I'm going to talk to my husband differently. I'm going to exercise. I'm going to smile every day. You realize that when you smile, the muscles in your face send a message to your brain to be happy. And it actually stays even after you've stopped smiling. So you can change the way you think by smiling. I'm going to start playing the saxophone. Someone's
going to go to the gynecologist as well. That was great.
Fabulous, you guys. Fabulous.
So listen, thank you everybody for taking part. Oh my gosh, that went so quickly as well. But just before we go, so first of all, I'd love to say thank you very much, Joan, for taking the time to do this. Sure. You're a really busy lady. It was really great. You're amazing. I'm really inspired just by listening to you talk. You've energized me. I love that, especially on those days when I'm not feeling particularly energized. And I think it's infectious, right?
Absolutely.
So what I'm going to do, ladies, is everybody who took part today and those who couldn't will get an email with a link to the upload of this. I'm going to record this, upload it to YouTube and Facebook, so you'll get a link, and you'll also get access to Joan's Facebook page and her website. So I'll make sure all of those are included.
And we'll post it on my Facebook page as well.
All right, that's super great. And everybody else, don't forget to tune in next week. Next week at the same time, Thursday noon Central Time, I'm interviewing Vicky Allen and Kay Adams, and they're in the UK. And that's why this time worked, because we had some people in the UK and some in the US. We're going to discuss their book, Still Hot. So that should be really interesting. So I'm very, really pleased with the amount of women that turned up today. It was so great to have the interaction. Thank you all very much. And take care. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Bye, ladies.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Appreciate you, Joan. Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda.